What's up, guys? It's Wolf from the Quarantine, and today we're going to take a look at a game that will be seeking funding on Kickstarter called Court of Kings by Pawn Joker Games. Now, Court of Kings plays 4 to 6 players, plays in about 45 minutes, give or take, and it doesn't have an age mount on the box just yet, but my 9-year-old daughter was able to play just fine, but she did not have to read anything out of the booklet, which I will explain a little bit more in depth when we get to the overview. But Court of Kings, essentially, the theme is the king has died, and you are his counsel, your close counsel. I don't remember exactly what it's called, but you're basically the king's counsel, and you're trying to pass laws and judgments and stuff like that until the duke arrives and can take over the throne, is essentially the theme. There's a little bit more to it, but that's basically the theme. And the game is a game about arguing with one another, and you're trying to push for your agenda to achieve your hidden goal based on whatever card you get and then this scenario, but then within reason arguing your point of whether or why that is the valid choice and the others aren't, which will make more sense in just a moment. So let's just go straight over to how the game is played.
Alright, well, to set up Court of Kings, what you're going to do is set these 3 player boards out. The player boards are all identical, and one side just has all the choices throughout the game, and the other side gives a description of what those choices mean, which will make more sense shortly. Then you're going to set out the main board here that has these little symbols, and you're going to put the appropriately colored cube on those symbols. So red would go here, green would go here, yellow would go here, blue, and then the white goes up here. Then you're going to take the advocacy deck, you're going to shuffle it up a little bit, you put that in the middle of the table, and then you're going to take these cards, which are the rolls, and you're going to randomly shuffle them out. So you're going to, or not shuffle them, deal them out. I can't talk today. You're going to shuffle these up, and you'll deal them out, 1 to each player. So we'll just say, boom, that's what we're doing. And then the rest of these go back in the box. Now you're going to secretly look at your objective, and for this case, we are the liberalist. So we don't need red, we don't need yellow, we need green. I don't know if you can see that. Green needs to be 3 or lower, blue needs to be 7 or higher. And what that is we have a 9 and a 1, so on this chart we need the blue there and the green there, or lower or higher respectively, and in order for us to win. And that'll make more sense shortly. So like this player here needs yellow and green above 7. And let's see, we have the Duke. This one's the interesting one. If no one wins before a new king is crowned, you win. So if this person can just cause enough discord so nobody wins, the game is going to go on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rounds. At the end of the 5th round, if nobody's won, the Duke wins instead. But the Duke's not in every game. And that's basically the gist of the game. So what you're going to do, once everything's set up, you're going to figure out who's going to go first, and you're going to flip over an advocacy card. And what is here, there we go. What this means is red is just going to move up by 1. So we would go, boop, move that up. And then now, blue, if blue moves at all, which, again, this will make more sense, but if blue moves at all, it's going to move twice instead. And then it shows a little arrow, and then read the next scenario. So if it shows left, the player to the reader's left. If it shows right, player to the reader's right. If it has an up, it means the reader chooses. So in this case, the reader will choose who's going to read the next scenario. So I'll go here, and then what you're going to do is you have this little booklet here, and the rules are on this side, and mine's misprinted. Like when you open this, it's upside down for whatever reason, but it's not too bad. And the rules only fit on 1, 2, 3 pages, so it's pretty nifty. But you got the rules here, and you're going to flip it over, and then now you have the ledger. Now you're going to be reading it backwards like this, similar to like import anime or something, but you're going to randomly find one of the stories in the ledger that you want. You can roll a die, you can just do them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, however. Now I also have to state that My review copy only has 14 scenarios. The full game is going to have something like 50 to 75 scenarios or something like that. So you'll have a lot of variety in here. But what you're going to do is you're going to pick one of these. So for example, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but you're going to read, Adam's apples. And you're going to read all this, and it's thematic, and it encourages role-playing, and you're going to read all this, all the way down, blah, 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 blah. And it's going to say, how do you handle Adam? I'm not going to spoil what this is, but essentially, well, rather than spoiling this, I'll do a made-up scenario. So let's just say, hypothetically, somebody stole a horse, and it'll have this whole role-playing, the guards took him, blah, 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 blah. And this may be a story I don't know, but this isn't one I've read. But somebody stole a horse, and they throw him into the dungeon, and now it's like, okay, how do you guys deal with this? Because there's no king, so the council has to do it. So now, you're going to look at this here, and how do we deal with the horse thief? Okay, well, I need green low and blue high. So when we look at this, blue is going to be moving up twice here, so I want, maybe we should pardon the man. So I'm going to be trying to argue, hey, we need to pardon him. I don't think we have no proof that he's tried to steal the horse. He maybe thought it was his, or da-da-da, we should pardon him. And then everybody else is trying to argue their point using the same formula of what they need to do to try to win. So everybody's like, well, we need to do this. No, well, why don't we do this? And you're trying to push through your argument. And then once everybody's stated their argument, or a set amount of time, or however you guys want to do it, you go, okay, we're going to vote. Okay? All in favor to pardon them, raise your hand. And you'll count whoever's, how many people are for that. And the majority rules. So in this case, if, let's say, the pardon passes, green's going to go down by 1, but then blue is going to go up by 2 because of this. And then, with this card here, it says I get to choose the next reader, so that player over there is going to choose to be the next reader. So you'll put this on bottom, you'll hand them the ledger, they flip this over, no, wrong way, they'll flip this over, and so green is going to go up by 1, and then blue, again, is going to move twice. And then down here it says the person to the left gets to move 1 cube in the city track by 1. So if I chose this person, the person to the left would be here, so let's see, they need red and green, or red and blue. So what they're going to do is they're going to move red up 1 more. So now red is at the 5 that they need. So they're on the way there to a victory. And then again, this player is going to dig through here and figure out which scenario they want. They're going to read it. How do you deal with the whatever? You guys are going to argue your point. You're going to keep going. And I failed to mention, after you vote and you adjust these, you're going to move this up by 1. And it's going to keep moving up by 1. At the end of the 5th round, if there's a duke in play and nobody has won, then you reveal this and you win. Because at the end of the round, if you have accomplished your thing here, you win. You go, haha, liberalist won, or, the diplomat won, or so on and so forth. And that is basically how you play Court of Kings. So let's just go to my final thoughts.
Alright, Court of Kings. Well, I'll go ahead and start by saying we did enjoy the game quite a bit. The arguing back and forth, you do have to enjoy role-playing to really get into the game and really enjoy it, which we all do. So the arguing back and forth and having to feel like a terrible person because maybe you want to execute a child, and you're trying to really argue that point of why this child needs to be executed because it fits your goal and it fits your agenda that you need to fulfill in order to win. But then you kind of feel like a terrible person afterwards. Like I really didn't want to do that, but it's my role. So that part's a lot of fun. And then there's a couple other things that I didn't mention during the gameplay area, but the cubes, for example, they're going to be moving up and down. You're trying to get them to get what you need. But if the red track ever goes above 5, or if any of the tracks ever drops below 1, the entire empire falls into turmoil, and then the game's over and everybody loses. So that, combined with the fact that you flip over one of those advocacy cards, which is going to make 1 cube move left or right, depending, that's pretty cool, because if you got 1 cube floating around at 1, it starts getting kind of stressful, because if that next card is going to drop that to turmoil, everybody loses. So that's pretty neat. And then the fact that the Duke is also out, so if nobody wins by the end of the 5th round, the Duke wins. So that's pretty cool. And overall, we really enjoyed that. The writing in it is really good. It's very thematic, where especially, again, if you like to get into your games and kind of get into a character and role play and whatnot, and arguing back and forth. Well, did you see him? You have no proof. Blah blah blah. So that part's really neat when you're reading the story, and then you're sitting there arguing with each other, and that's fun. But the game has some issues. Some that the developer has already stated that he is aware of. The first one being this book. The rules, the fact that they're upside down, that's really not that big of a deal. But the ledger, if you look at this text, I will just show you the rules text so that way I don't spoil anything. This text, I don't want to say it's hard to read, but it's difficult to look at or to read, I guess you could say. It's not pleasant to read. The text is a little smaller than it probably should be. The background's a little darker. It doesn't stand out, and again, I don't want to say it was difficult to read because it's not. We were able to read it no problem, but like my 9-year-old couldn't read. She reads pretty well, but she was struggling trying to read the words. So the publisher or the developers already stated they plan on fixing that. They're probably going to make it a little bigger or brighten up the background so the words stand out more, stuff like that. So that was a minor complaint, not that big of a deal. The other issue that we did have was with these charts. Now, you have these 3 different lines here. They feel completely different. So like you have imprison, exile, execute, pardon. Then you have increased tax, decreased tax, reimburse, levy, and then war, treaty, embargo, and espionage. So for example, my horse thief example. Somebody, and we actually had somebody do this because it fit what they needed to do, so they had to figure out some convoluted way to make it work. But he's like, the horse thief, alright, well we need to embargo him. Alright, why are we going to embargo him? Well, because we're going to do this, and da-da. So, like, the way we felt that it should do, which, this is just personal preference, it felt like it should be like, column 1, how do you figure out how to do it? So that way, now you have to choose the choices that make sense to the situation. And so it was just a minor gripe that we had. Again, it's still very playable. Generally speaking, most of the time everybody chose ones that made sense, that would at least kind of fit what they needed to do. But I feel that it would be better if this was bigger, if you had more choices, and then you had to stick to one column. So, double the amount of choices and make it stick to one column that is thematic to the scenario. So that was one issue that we did have. And then the last very minor one was the Duke isn't always in every game. And we played it a few more times that we made sure the Duke was always in. We'd put the Duke, and then we'd randomly deal out more rolls, shuffle them together, and then deal those out. And we really liked that because that way there's always going to be a winner. Because if you don't have a Duke and nobody decides, then nobody wins. But at least with the Duke, there will be a winner. It's just whether or not you win before the Duke. So you're just trying to figure out who's the Duke and why are they throwing a wrench and everything. And so that was another minor issue. Now, probably the biggest issue that we had is the voting system. Voting system, it works. It's just standard voting. Okay, everybody raise their hand that's in favor of pardoning the person. So everybody raise their hand, you count votes, majority rules. But, especially if you're playing with 4 players, we came across 2 times. Either way, it's 1 or 2 times more than it probably should have happened. But each person wanted to vote for something completely different. Nobody could agree because you were voting for what fit your agenda the best. So nobody could agree, and we just had 4 people like, okay, well, all in favor of pardon, 1 person raised their hand. Okay, well, all in favor of whatever, 1 person raised their hand, so on and so forth. So we couldn't figure out, okay, well, what do we do? Do we just skip it, nothing happens, and maybe everything drops or whatever? We couldn't figure out what to do, and 1 person wound up just being like, okay, whatever, I'll just vote with this person just so we can get the ball rolling. So that was kind of an issue that we did have. So the 2 biggest issues we had was the voting, and then the fact that the choices don't fit the thematic nature of the game. It really should, because the game is so richly thematic, and again, if you like to roleplay, we really got into this, and we had my brother slammed his cup down on the table. Like, no, we need to increase taxes. Da, da, da. And now it was so much fun. And we really, really enjoyed that part. So the game needs work, but it is a great little game. If you like argument games, essentially. I don't really know what better word to call it. But it is a great little game, and we did really enjoy it. It just, of course, it's a Kickstarter game, so it's going to need a little bit more work. So anyways, if you like what you see here, want to follow them along, that Kickstarter link will be up here. I also have a Patreon if you'd like to support me in the show. Any little bit helps, any support helps. I also have a link to the Patreon up there. All of this will be down in the description as well. If you can give my channel a like, comment, and subscribe, I read every comment you guys post, and I will see you guys next time in the quarantine.